I am so excited. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Transformational Storyteller Show. Today is a beautiful Thursday. It's sunny here in Fort Worth, Texas, and I have with me a fantastic guest, best-selling storyteller, Sabrina Lindner. She guides persons who experience fear and trauma due to cultural and gender labels, expectations, and stereotypes, who want to create a safe, connected, and meaningful life. Her work,
Yay.
yeah. Hi, Sabrina.
Hello. So lovely to be here. I'm so excited that the day is today.
Yes, and I am just so happy and honored that you're here with us so that you can tell us all about your brand, the Transforming Being, and the amazing work that you do for people who absolutely need to experience the genuine care and unconditional acceptance that you bring in every piece of content that you share. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Oh my gosh, everyone. I met Sabrina. I mean, it was a few years ago, and she was actually interviewing me when we met. So this is a full circle moment, and I'm
Yes.
so delighted. Take notes, find your notebook, and her information is going to be in the show notes because after you hear her story and everything that she has to share, you're going to want to connect with her. So, yeah, I'm just telling you. So of course, this is the Transformational Storyteller Show. So we start by sharing our story. And your story in the Gifts of Pain book series was one that is, really near and dear to my heart because you talked about from being from lost self to true self. And I think everyone can relate to that feeling. So, would you be willing to share that story with us?
Yes, of course. I'm going to read it for you.
Thank you.
Okay. Here we go. From Lost Self to True Self by Sabrina Lindner. I was sitting alone in my silent and empty apartment, tears flowing like a waterfall. What had I wanted to prove? I felt exhaustion, guilt, self blame, and unspeakable sadness. Years without rest, burning myself out for a life I could be proud of, and suddenly I was fired. Through my move from Germany to Kenya, raising a family, traveling the world, and the loss of my second born child, I never stopped. I should have been grieving. Now I was in pieces. And although no one knew, I was filled to the brim with all the trash I had not allowed myself to throw out over the years. There was no space for anything good left. After days of spending time with myself in introspection, I realized I did not have to abuse myself anymore. With my tears of relief, my childhood dreams floated up. I had always dreamt of being a writer, someone who asked questions of impact and stood for love. If not now, then when? I told myself, and sat down to write my first best selling novel. With every page, I rediscovered myself piece by piece. Our writing takes us to beautiful places inside and outside of ourselves. I learned that when we meditate, spend time with ourselves, ask ourselves simple reflective questions, and write the answers down, what doesn't align falls away, making space for what fits. We allow ourselves to heal what's hurting. Now I transform lives with my writing and speak about how to find the answers to the profound questions we all have about our identity and purpose.
Oh my gosh. Wow. 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 So many gems in such a short story. And of course, there's more to dive into. Thank you so much for being so vulnerable because that was a lot that we can unpack. I mean, thinking about how we can all relate to losing the things that we think makes us ourselves. And
Yes.
and you were fired, you lost a baby. Oh my goodness. Mean, I would love for anyone to put in the chat, like, what did that story bring up for you? I know that Ali is watching and really resonating with what you shared. And I really just appreciate your courage, not only sharing it on the page, but also allowing yourself to read it for everyone to hear right now. Why do you think it was important for you to share this story and for all of us to practice storytelling in our lives?
Oh, that's such a beautiful question. I think the first thing is that sharing my story is obviously a process for myself to understand where I stand in life, who I am at that moment, what has happened, and to come to terms with it. Sometimes we go through really tough times and we don't give ourselves a moment to really take it all in because it's so painful. But when we write, it's kind of like a superpower or wonderful, beautiful tool that we can use to give ourselves the space to process. And I think that's what I did. You know, I had this severe burnout for years and years, and this heavy grief about the loss of my second born child that I carried with me. And I just kept going and functioning, thinking that's the best way to handle the situation. But what really happened was that I didn't get to truly understand any of the things that were going on with me. So when I sat down to write, I remember thinking a lot like, oh, this is what I really think. Oh, this is how I truly feel.
Mm.
And that's one that's really powerful for our own well being. But sharing our stories outside of ourselves and our safe space really also helps us make a difference for others.
Mm.
Because I realize when I start speaking about the things that I've gone through, it's not an isolated story. It's unique to me, but we are all human. So we do experience pain in a similar way. Thousands, millions of people experience loss.
Mm.
And millions of people suffer from burnout or other mental challenges. So sharing my story, I also feel that I was living my vision, which is really to create a world free from discrimination and judgment, where everyone can live their true identity and purpose. So I felt I really had to share this story.
Absolutely. I mean, I love that you shared about that and it's really key that you just said that in order to create a world that's free of discrimination, that's free of abuse, that's free of hurt, we first have to do that work within. And so when I think about you finding your true self, that was the work that was needed in order for you to bring the expression of your true self to create that world that you so wish for others. And I think we don't really think about that sometimes because of the fear and trauma like you mentioned in your mission. And so did any fear or trauma come up for you when you were writing this particular story?
Of course, to some degree, I relived all my moments of pain and struggle. Um, for this particular story, I remember it just came flowing out of me. It was almost like a download. Uh,
Mm,
it was pretty smooth, and I think it's because I wrote my novel before and let so much already process. So I was grateful for that because I think had I not done that prior work of writing my novel and processing through writing my novel, writing this story from lost self to true self would have been much more challenging for me, which
yeah,
again is proof of how powerful it is when we sit down and we take time and we do so repeatedly to just really go deep. Because sometimes we feel we have reached one level and
yeah,
layer,
yeah,
but there's more to unpack. And it might feel overwhelming, but what I also discovered is that there's a lot of beauty in it because the release and the calm and the clarity that comes afterwards is like worth all the struggles that we experience.
absolutely. And I know that you're now in the process of publishing a new story,
Yes,
the
true.
book, The Voices of Transformation, and you're going a little deeper in that story. And what was that one like?
Well, because I was writing about a related topic, of course, but not a topic that I had really processed a lot.
Mm,
Try to push away a little, try to look away from a little. The process was very intense.
yeah.
So I went through, you know, bringing it all out and seeing what I really think about discrimination and especially violent language. And
Mm,
it touched me so deeply. I knew I have a lot of conviction for mindful language and for kindness in words because it shapes our reality. But when I started writing for the Voices of Transformation, I realized that there was so much more for me personally to unpack, and that I'm one of the people who need healing on that topic, who need all the unconditional acceptance and all the genuine care that I'm also there to give to others. So it was not as smooth as writing The Gifts of Pain, and it taught me a lot because it was not smooth.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I love that, there are things that come easy, things that come at a price, and yet we can all see it through. And I love what Tracy said in the comments, and she's watching Tracy Shannon. She says it's a deeply human story.
Mm.
And definitely your story has resonated so deeply with so many who have read it. And Ali says you have to know why you are to be who you are to be able to have the energy for others who may not know they have something worthy in themselves.
Oh,
Isn't that amazing?
such
Wow.
a yeah.
Yeah. And so thank you for your inspiring words. I love that you call this violent words. And so what you're doing is bringing the opposite into the world. And I feel that this is what we all definitely need to be embarking upon right now. But something that you said in your Gifts of Pain story was that you allowed yourself to take out all this trash.
Mm.
I really resonated with that imagery. And so, why is that important? Why is the work that you do important in the world right now?
Well, the thing is, what I've realized is it's kind of a paradox, but when we carry a lot of things with us, a lot of pain, a lot of stress, a lot of hurt, whatever it might be, but heavy emotions. The funny thing is, and it links to what we just heard in the comments too, is that we feel empty. like energyless, deflated, exhausted. We feel like we have nothing to give. But
Mm.
what really happens is that we are filled with things that are so intense that they block out anything else. And that's what usually happens when we experience fear and trauma. We are almost in a tunnel vision, or to use a metaphor that you and I used the other day when we spoke, it's like we are in a lion's cage fighting for survival, and we are so busy with fighting for survival that we can't really focus on anything else. And that's why it's so important to create beautiful and really fluid support systems for people who are going through these stages, be it fear, trauma, any other mental and emotional challenge. Because when we tailor make our support systems, when we have that unconditional acceptance, no matter of who it is who seeks help, who it is who's going through the fear and trauma, and we really give them care, and care means we see the person, we don't see a label, we don't see an expectation that we have to the role that they should be fulfilling, we don't see the stereotypes or cliches that we have been taught or absorbed from society. When we just see the human, that's when, it's like a ripple effect. That person is able to feel safe. When they feel safe, they throw out the trash, they can process. Then
Mm.
they can start connecting because they start feeling that they have space for that and energy for that. And from there, they can find the meaning. This is what I'm here to do. And they can actually also bring a positive or beautiful impact into the world. So it's about one person that then does so much for the rest.
Yeah. Oh, that is so powerful. And I love that systematic way in which you explained it. And I want to ask you, because we've talked, of course, about you writing your best-selling novel, and it was a true success. I mean, I have read it. I was part of the
Yeah.
publishing process, so I'm very familiar with it. And so, having read it, I understand that so much of this message that you share is also depicted in the novel.
Mhm.
Why do you think people should buy the novel? I mean, it's not an ad, but why do you think it's important to read not only nonfiction, but also fiction
Mm.
that allows us to see the common threads of reality in our world?
Yeah. And again, this is an amazing, amazing question. Thank you for that. So, I feel that the usefulness, let me use that word, of non-fictional writing is very obvious. The learning that we can get from non-fictional books or any other form of writing. For fiction, and I've always been a fan of fiction, I devour novels. Um, what I find so special in them is that they can really catapult us into a different world, into a different dimension, a different person. We can live the life of a different person and get to understand them and get to see a glimpse, or more than just a glimpse, of what they are going through. And when we do that, and for example, in An Ordinary Odyssey, my novel, I write from very many different perspectives, people of different backgrounds and nationality and belief. So when you read that story, there's so much that you can take from just following these people on their journey, because they want to discover themselves. They want to understand what their purpose is, just like all of us want to do. But that's something I feel that only fiction can give us, this immersion into another person's life, their emotions, their thoughts. And suddenly it's like, wow, oh, this is what's going on. And we can translate that into reality and then suddenly understand that person that we felt we were so far removed from. So I feel when we read novels that talk about love, talk about unconditional acceptance and care in this world, that's when we can really also understand how can we bring the world together, because we have an understanding, an idea of what the other people are going through as well. So I think fiction is just a beautiful gift because we have so many perspectives and so much knowledge that we can extract from there for our real reality or our everyday life.
Absolutely. I love that. Tracy says that an ordinary odyssey is next on her list.
Yay!
And it sounds awesome. It is awesome. And, one of the things that I really resonate with in the novel is the beautiful ways in which we learn different cultures and places that you have already visited and that you have lived in, and that you're definitely bringing a piece of yourself. So I think like we get to also know you better by reading this fictional piece of art. And I have my book downstairs, but the book cover, I mean, look it up. It's available on Amazon, and bookstores too.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us about the book cover, because it is something special that I think it's so fantastic. And I just want everyone to know about this.
Oh, it was such a beautiful process. And I think it's part of the reason why, Elena, you and I had to publish this book together, because it gave us, and especially me, of course, the freedom to fully create this novel in the way I envisioned. And the fact is that I drew two pictures prior to the designer then getting the book cover ready. So I drew a skyline down here, an aquarelle, but now it looks very different. And I drew inspired by African patterns that a lot of African women all across the continent wear, very colorful and very inspiring. This is a peacock inspired pattern. So, we were like, we want to represent the international flavor in the book cover. We want to represent the different worlds that come together. We want to bring a piece of myself. So that's why I drew these images, and then the designer took them and created a beautiful, beautiful book cover out of it. So yeah, even whenever I look at it, I'm like, yay, this is really so wholesome, which is beautiful.
Yes, I love that. It's one of my favorite covers, and it's because of that. Like, how can you take fabric into drawing into book?
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful process, and through it all, it's the fabric of who you are and
Mhm.
the beautiful mission that you have to make sure that persons of any background, any religion, any nationality, any gender, any identity are felt, seen, and heard, and treated with the dignity, respect, and I would say awe, because we are just so amazing as humans, as they deserve. And I love the mission that you have. And so before we leave today, I would like to ask you about your mission with the transforming being, and what that is about, and why is it important? Why is it your passion?
Mm. Yes, I mean, the transforming being really came out of a lot of clarity that I gained over the years, just observing the world. One thing is that I realized that traditional therapeutic processes often like are kind of stopping at a certain point where people need additional support. They have maybe through therapy understood what their challenge is, what their trauma is, what their fear may be. But then the question is, okay, what do I do with this now?
Mm.
And how can I still express myself? Because as humans, we have to express ourselves to be well. If we feel we are caged, we cannot show who we truly are, we get unwell, be it emotionally or like in our thoughts, or be it physically. It even has like serious physical symptoms. And that is still not fully grasped by many societies on this planet. So I feel the transforming being is a safe space where people can come, say like, yes, I know I have fears. Yes, I know I have some trauma, or I'm just guessing. Maybe they are not diagnosed yet, but they know something is blocking them from truly expressing themselves. They have symptoms, maybe physical, maybe other. And they want a space where they can just be and slowly, just like how I threw out my trash, get to throw out the trash and be in a space where they don't have to feel judged. Because often, especially when we carry trauma and fears from labels that are harmful or were used in a harmful way, from the stereotypes and cliches that might box us in, or the expectations that we have or others have, we feel that we are constantly judged, be it by ourselves or be it by the world around us. And that's when we can't feel safe. We cannot connect. And we can certainly not live our dreams and have the impact in this world that we want to have. So that's really my vision, like a collective, a huge collective made up of all colorful arrays of people who just are together to support each other and create that space where everyone can be safe, connected, and find meaning.
I love that so much. It's such a beautiful, beautiful dream and true possibility because you're giving us these tools and you're really paving the path for that to happen with the collective. Before we finish today, which we're almost out of time. But before we finish, you talked about self-abuse in your chapter with the gifts of pain. And I know that in the chapter, when people buy the book, they can see a checklist and they can see a tool that they can use to get started in the path of healing from self-abuse. And I think that that's something that it's really heavy to
Mm,
realize that yes, we have those traumas and fears that we're realizing that we have as people that have been inflicted by circumstances and people outside of our influence and control. However, realizing that we are inflicting abuse upon ourselves is I think, a serious, deep, and intense layer. Would you share with us what is the best way to
mm.
identify I'm engaging in self-abuse?
I think the biggest thing when we want to start the process consciously of processing whatever it is that is stuck within us is to first tell ourselves that I love I love you the way you are, and we are just going to take small steps. Because I think once we realize that we want to change something and we want to tackle something, usually the way we have been conditioned is that we really want to rush into it. And then we tick 5, 10 different things and we feel that, oh my God, absolutely a failure. I'm doing it all wrong. You know, I can never change something, or how will I ever get out of this? So my recommendation would be to really take some time, even if it's just a few minutes, a moment each day, and spend time with yourself and ask yourself, like, how have I treated myself today? Have I sat down while I was eating and really enjoyed my food and felt it, tasted it truly? Have I had, maybe you love your coffees like I do. Have I really sat down and taken a deep breath and looked around and just appreciated that calm moment? Have I respected my sleep that I probably know I need? For everyone, that's a bit different. So it's more like beginning to observe. And then you can pick one thing and begin with that.
Oh, I love,
But abuse sometimes takes a while to notice because we are so used to our ways.
yeah.
So that's why I recommend we go slow and we have a lot of love and acceptance and care for ourselves as we go through the process.
Oh, that felt so good. I mean, for me, it's tea,
Ah,
herbal infusions uh, that I boil. And I felt it. I'm like, oh my goodness, when we're done with the interview, I'm gonna go have my little cup of tea and in a very beautiful teacup.
ah, perfect.
But I love that. And I love how you said it looks different for everyone because, just right before we went live, I was telling you, I'm so tired and I was yawning and I didn't sleep too much last night. But I think that is all about discernment.
Mm,
Discernment, like how am I an agent in this situation, right? And I love that invitation that you make for everyone, and I would love for all of you to comment and tell us, what is one thing that you got out of that explanation that Sabrina Lindner shared with us for starting the journey to really create that genuine care for ourselves and genuine acceptance. And with that, is there a step that you want to share? Is there an invitation for everyone who is listening and watching right now or during the replay so that they can get started with that process of taking out the trash and making space for the good, as you called it?
mm. Again, I think what works for people, that's my experience working with so many different people over the years, is different. But a starting point can always be a little meditation practice. That is powerful for every human. There's no exception. So you can just sit down somewhere comfortably. It can even be in a cafe, and you can just, close your eyes for a moment if you're comfortable and breathe and
Mm.
ask yourself, who am I today? And listen to what comes up. And that is like a beautiful starting point. If you can do that like more regularly and make it into your little habit, you will realize that suddenly more clarity comes up of, oh, this might be an abusive habit that I have, or this is what I would love to do about my fear. This is how I would like to tackle my trauma and move forward. Because the more we, and this is not, a new awareness, this is like centuries old wisdom. but we can actually make use of that wisdom if we just carve out very little pockets of time throughout our days. And that way, it also doesn't have to feel overwhelming when you're busy and you don't know how you can actually change like the bigger picture of your life. That will come with time.
Yeah. I love it so much. Thank you so much, Sabrina. I love you. I love everything that you shared. Um, I want to invite everyone, encourage you strongly to connect with Sabrina, the transforming being. Her information is going to be in the show notes, and she has so much wisdom to share, and it's coming from lived experience and research and professional experience. So you're in great hands. Sabrina, thank you so much for being here with us. You are a gift, and I appreciate you.
Oh, I appreciate you too. And I appreciate the audience. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. And I will see you next time in the Transformational Storyteller Show. Stay blessed.